Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Godwinks. My name is Ashley Crane.
And I'm Gina Tognoni Shirello.
We had a wonderful time chatting with Scott Bryce in part one of his episode, and there was so much great content that we had to break it up into two parts. So, this is part two of our conversation with Scott Bryce. Gina, why don't you tell us a little bit about who Scott is and why he's joining us today?
Scott Bryce is an incredible actor. He's been both in daytime and nighttime television, and he's a familiar face. We have never worked together, but he has been gracious enough to share his God winks with us, and his story is remarkable. I hope that our listeners are as blessed as we have been.
With me.
Well, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There
same,
was no
same.
Caribbean nurse.
Does he go into? I hope he goes into detail with it in the book.
He and I are going to get connected. Brian's reached out to him
Have to.
through email because I want to know what she looked like,
Yeah, yeah.
and if he tells me
Gotta
there
hear it
were
all.
seashells in her hair,
That's it.
yeah,
Yeah, make a movie.
that's it. But I thought, and I reached out to a friend of mine, Chris, and I said, two white dudes have got this tall, gorgeous black Caribbean nurse as
Bizarre.
guardian angels. And he
Yeah.
said to me, consider that a compliment.
Right. Right. And that was your guardian angel, you believe.
I think it's one of them.
One, yeah.
I think we have more than we know. I think that there are, we don't even hear all the sound in this world. Our ears can only hear a spectrum. We don't see everything in this
Mm-mm,
world. Our
mm-mm.
eyes can only, and that's this world. And we're oblivious to a lot of it. And we think we know what reality is. We talk about terra firma, and I think terra firma, you mean this down to earth thing in this globe that's got this molten thing on the inside that's spinning opposite, that's all twirling around this giant gas bag that's on fire in the middle of a vacuum, and the whole thing's hurtling through space at billions of miles per hour? That terra firma? And you realize there is none. So yeah, I've had angels visit me.
Absolutely. If let's switch gears a little bit back. Let's go back to your career. You are such an incredible versatile actor. I mean, you've been in the
Thanks.
business since a
Thank
kid. You really are. I remember you when I was coming up, and I remember your face distinctly, and I remember thinking, even when I didn't know anything about soap opera acting, I thought to myself, he's good. He's just something really good about him. You were born in New York, raised in Connecticut, both from creative parents. You studied acting in high school. You attended the Staples High School for Players or high school players.
Indeed, I hated everything about the business because my parents were in it. My parents were also alcoholic, who, as am I, and they really trashed their lives and career, and then rebuilt.
And
They got
rebuilt it. We
sober
have to say
and
that
then
they
completely rebuilt it
made,
and
thank God.
and were philanthropists throughout their life, and that was their journey. We're all in the
Right.
journey. We're all in school here, is what I'm thinking.
On
But
school. Here's the thing. Going to sobriety, you just celebrated 34 years, big milestone, 34 years. You have a God wink where you find your sobriety, but you have a God wink on the LA freeway.
yeah,
Okay?
well, first of all, I was struggling and successfully. I understand my background. My parents were alcoholic. I was running Alateen meetings.
Alateen, tell us, Alateen is like an
Alateen is
Al-Anon.
yeah, it's like Al-Anon. Alateen is for the children of
Wow.
alcoholics. And
I
so
didn't
the
even know they
children
had
have
that.
their own meeting that they
Okay.
can, right? And
Mhm.
I was running those meetings at the age of like 14 and 15.
Oh.
Then went out and got drunk when I got the soap operas when I started to drink. And
When you started acting.
when I became my father,
Whoa.
and then my therapist, 3 years into my sobriety, I was having road rage, and I went to go see a therapist. And after several months, she said, "Tell me about your father." And I said, "Hey, you're comparing wing nuts and marshmallows. I mean, there's no." And I went off. And then she said to me, "I see. Well, your father was a major soap star who then started drinking and then trashed his whole career and lost the house, and everything was repossessed, and his kind of career tanked, and he had to start over at the bottom. Whereas you." And it was like a 2x4 in my head. And as I say to my wife, God with me, he starts with a tap on the shoulder and then keeps escalating. And eventually it's a 2x4. And
I getcha.
unfortunately, with me, it's the 2x4 over and over. But that moment I stopped, and she said, "Do you forgive him yet?
Oh my goodness.
You had to go out and do everything he did that you couldn't forgive. You
So
duplicated his life. You duplicated his sins. You duplicated everything he did against you because you couldn't forgive him, could you?"
Yeah.
And I said, I had hated him. And now, and then it opened. Floodgates sort of opened, that awareness.
beautiful.
During my struggle of alcoholism. And first of all, I was dating my agent, an alcoholic precision. And
What do you say?
so,
He does an alcoholic decision.
yeah, right. So anyway, we had taken a vacation. Susan and I were in Jamaica, and I was a drunk. I was out of control, and she had the mini bar removed, and I went into this 2 month, white knuckling it. And then I told her, I read in the paper, there were these historic waves in San Luis Obispo for surfers. They were huge. They were 45 feet minimum. It was historic, once in a lifetime. And I explained to her about how historic a once in a lifetime was, and she understood, and she supported me. And she said, "You should go do that." Now, what's fascinating about that is I don't surf.
But you thought you could surf.
Oh, tell her you're surfing. Tell her there's historic waves. Tell her you got to go. It's once in a lifetime. And off I go to San Luis Obispo. I check into a hotel, and I had a glass of wine with dinner.
Wait, so slow down. That all was to get you to drink.
That's my, how do I say this? And people may push back on this, but I believe that addiction
Mhm.
has a personality, and the addiction wants to stay alive, and the addiction wants to kill you. It wants to take you down. And alcoholism, when threatened, will do everything in its power to stay present. So I'm white knuckling it. I'm not drinking. Go up here. Yeah, go out of town. I know. Go out of town where no one's watching you. Why? So we can drink. I want you to drink. I want you, right? Tell her you're surfing. It made up all this stuff. And now I'm in San Luis Obispo in a hotel, and I ordered wine with dinner. I was arrested at 2 o'clock in the morning that night by a trooper. I was pulled over for erratic driving. I passed my field sobriety test. He told me, oh, he was heading back to his car when a voice, not my own, said, "Trooper, I'm drunk. I have no business being on the road." And I'm looking around,
Wow.
and it came out of my mouth.
Do you think that was the alcoholic voice, or do you think
No, that was God.
that was God
That was
saving
God,
you,
right,
saying
going over that.
you're like,
Here's your moment. You can save your life right now by being arrested. What you
got it,
think is the worst moment of your life is
it's
actually
not,
going to save you
and save somebody else.
and save somebody else from me killing them.
Yeah.
That would have been far worse. So he turns, he looks at me, he put me in the car, he gives me the breathalyzer. And in California, I think it's still to this day, it's 0.08 is called legally drunk. And
Mhm.
I blew 0.4. I was probably 2 drinks away from dead.
Wow.
So off to the drunk tank I go. I was there all night fighting off different drunk people. You get out at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then they let you drive home. You can keep your car for 90 days until you go to court.
Oh,
So
wow.
I get on the highway and I'm driving back to LA, and I'm deeply, deeply shaken to my core. Obviously, I had never been arrested before.
Mhm.
And now there's no denying it. There's no denying this. So I'm on the 101, and the 101 gets shut down because a chlorine container truck flipped over on some highway bridge, and it was shut down for hours while they clean it up. It was July 28th, and it was about 110 degrees. And I had a 16th of a tank of gas in my black Mustang convertible with a black top and black leather seats.
Oh my
And I
God.
am heaving and shaking. I've got the DTs, I've got the cold sweats which come and go. I am in a level of shame I cannot even
Mhm.
describe, a
Mentally.
level of guilt, a level of reality caving in on me. The highway shut down. I don't know what to do. And from the depths of my soul, for the first time in my life, I prayed to God and I begged for help. And I
Oh,
said, "I surrender. I'm a drunk. I'm ready. God, please help me."
look at that. Can't do it in my own strength.
Yeah.
In seconds, I was no longer in a car seat. I was sitting in a hand. The headache went away. The chills stopped. The vibrating stopped. The sweating stopped. The heaves stopped. And I entered this very odd Zen state of kind of semi meditation. It lasted for hours because that's how long it took for them to open the road. They finally did. I drive up another 8, 9 miles to the next exit, filled up the car with gas. I drove home. I was a big enough name in those days that the agency would send scripts to my door for auditions that I had the following week. I walked in, there were 4 scripts sitting at my door. They were all from Monday. It was now Sunday. And I had at 10 o'clock, I had a 10, a 12, a 2, and a 4, and they were huge. And I went to an AA meeting that night, and I'd been to them before. I was running L team meetings. I'd been with my dad, but it was the first time I said, "My name is Scott, and I am an alcoholic." And I said it. And I went back to a diner where I used to go after I drank. and I was sober, and I had at Jerry's Famous, and then I had my breakfast at whatever that was, 11:30 at night, and I went home and I started work on the scripts. And I was working back as an actor, not as a drunk, not as the arrogant star, not any, just
Right.
step at a time.
You were really looking at the material, you were breaking it
Yes.
down, you were
Yes.
understanding it.
Yes. And I went to work.
Ego wasn't there.
Not there. So now, as people who don't know Hollywood at all, if you audition for a guest star role, it usually takes about a week. Like you audition on Monday, you'll probably hear by Friday. It might take into the following weekend if they're trying to get a star and they can't. And then they come back to you, right? But it's days. So I go to the 10 o'clock audition and I'm heading out for the 12. And my phone rings in my car phone, and I answered it, and it was my agent. They went insane for you. They just booked you. They don't want to see anybody else. You congratulate, you just knocked that out of the park. And I think it was like I was like King Arthur or something like that. So bizarre. And I said to her, okay, that's great. Right now I just have to focus on the next thing. And what I didn't realize at that second was I was already performing program. I dismissed the ego. I dismissed that. I had first things first. What's next? I have a job to do. What's that? My next audition.
You stayed in the moment, you didn't jump ahead.
No, next.
You stayed in the moment, took care of your task,
Right.
went
And
to
now
the
I got the next audition.
present moment.
So I went to the 12 o'clock. I left the 12 o'clock. I'm on my way to the 2 o'clock and the phone rings. And my agent says, what's going on with you, dude? They just went insane. They were calling me before you had left the building. They want to book you right now. That was the second job. And again, you don't hear for a week.
By the way, this does not
Never.
happen.
It
This does not happen in
does
an
not
actor's
happen.
career. Maybe this is like extraordinary.
Extraordinary.
To book 2 gigs same day.
Right.
Yeah, go
And
ahead.
now I left and I went to the 2 o'clock. And I go to the 2 o'clock and I'm coming out of the 2 o'clock and my phone is ringing in the car. And I go over and I answered it. And she says, are you on fire? They just called me. They said you were unbelievable. They want to book you.
Third.
It was third. And I said, great. Can we talk about this later? I've got another audition coming up at 4, and it was for LA Law, and it was huge. And I had to get that material in my head. I love to be as off book as possible at auditions. And so I head to the audition. It was at 20th Century Fox. I go to 20th Century. I do the audition. I left. I come out. The phone is ringing. I got in the car. I picked it up. She said, are you paying people? And
I
said,
mean,
well, she goes, I said, what's going on? She goes, you just booked that. They called me before you were in the elevator. It was a guest spot. They're turning it into a recurring role. You'll be playing James Pavlik on LA Law.
okay.
I got home and I walked in the house, fell to my knees and said to God, okay, I get it.
I get it.
Yeah.
And again, it wasn't, I'm great. Look what I did. I just booked 4. It was the reverse of that. It was from
God. Yeah,
it's
humility.
from, it was
Look what you did. So this was what, and Ash, I want you to jump in here.
1991.
It's 1991. The way 90s vision, LA Law,
you-
all of what you're doing here is like the golden era of
Yeah.
television. You were in the golden era for soaps. Very extraordinary time
Yes,
in soap
well,
operas.
yeah.
They were powerful amongst networks.
Well,
They
we
don't-
had
they-
millions and millions, and
Millions of viewers, nothing like today.
Yeah, no, millions.
And it was the lead for networks. That was their prime source of
Yeah, we paid
revenue.
for prime time.
Correct. So we've talked about you took that shift. You're in this position of humility. You've been gutted. Many people have said that the 12-step program resembles Catholicism in regards to confession and in regards to accountability. And you and I talked a little bit about that. Artists have this ability true artists, when they're good, it's not about them. It's about the script. It's about whatever is going on in the moment. And it's about your partner. It's
Correct.
about whatever you're serving in the moment, whatever the
Correct.
scene is. There's so many layers to it.
Yep.
When we don't make it about when we make it about ourselves, and then let's go back to ego. And I always say edging God out, EGO.
That's a good one. I like that. I'm going to remember.
Yeah.
It's not mine. I stole it from someone. I have no idea where that came from. But when you make it about yourself, and this could go across the board, you squeeze God out. And God gave you the gift. God gave you the gift to feel and to be able to communicate as artists, whatever it may, painter, singer, dancer. But when we get in the way, we learn the hard way. Ash, you teach young children. You're an actor yourself. How do you stay out of your own way?
I mean, Sometimes you don't. But when you have these moments of like, "Oh, it's work, it's happening, I'm getting the work." But I think just remembering that you're part of a team. You don't live in a bubble. Creativity doesn't live in a bubble. Artistry isn't in a bubble. If you don't open up that bubble and remind yourself that your goal is to elevate the project the best that you can, just like every single other person's goal. You have not only the other person in the scene with you, but you've got everyone around you, your entire crew. And I also am not just an actor, I'm a filmmaker as well. So I assistant direct. So I'm, the head of the crew at some times, and I script supervise. So I'm always watching the monitor and I'm looking at the story as a whole. And I think, goodness, being a script supervisor is a wonderful job because, especially if you are also an actor, because you're getting a chance to work with every single department and you see how decisions are made. And
Mhm.
sometimes as actors, we're like, "Oh, they cut that scene," or, "Oh, I
The
wanted
lighting, it
the,"
should be better. Yep.
right, exactly, or, "I'm frustrated that, this is the outfit I wanted to wear," or,
Mhm.
"That was my favorite line, I loved that line so much," or, "I had this wonderful emotional moment." And so being able to be on the monitor and have conversations with the director and the director of photography and also working with the editor, you just learn so much about you're just this tiny little cog in this giant wheel. And
Yeah.
not to say that you're not important, but to say everyone's important. And so I think just making sure, and that's true of whatever you do in life, whether you're working in film production or television, or whether you're part of a large company or a small business, or,
Mhm.
you're a babysitter or a teacher, whatever it is. I mean, you've got to be part of a team and you've got to understand that you're not the only person that makes the world go round. And I think just reminding yourself that we're all God's children. I mean, it's such a silly,
It
catchy
is.
thing to
It is,
say,
but that
but
it but what that ego and
right.
addiction, which
Yeah,
Scott is so
exactly.
eloquent because he's gone through it, explains,
Yeah.
almost like the pressure. It's and
Mhm.
an addiction usually is not too far away.
Right.
It's the pressure of, "I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna prove it. I'm gonna
Mhm.
take care of it." It becomes I focused, right, Scott? And
Well, it's also, and don't discount something you said about, because when you say artists, that's important. We as artists are hypersensitive.
Yeah.
And so that sensitivity is our gift because we're empaths.
yes.
That's
That
why we're performers. I can put my essence into someone else's circumstance.
yeah.
Jennifer Lawrence said, they said, "Are you, I don't know who asked her this, but they said, "What was your training?" She says, "I haven't been formally trained. My biggest tool is empathy."
Because I think that's what we really do. Now, my father, I wasn't allowed to act until I had done everybody else's job in the theater. So I
Oh,
had to work in props, wardrobe, lighting, set construction, outdoor parking, and concessions. And my
wonderful.
father, until literally until I was allowed to act. And my father would say, "This is show business with the emphasis on business." And even if he said, if you're a star, you're still just a brushstroke in someone else's painting. And if you might be a bigger brushstroke,
Hmm?
but you should be serving the painting,
Right.
Not your color,
not
not
your color
how
or
big your
maybe
stroke
make right.
is.
Right.
Oh, I love that. That helps really keep it in perspective,
Yeah.
Yeah.
even for
And then
new
he said
artists.
something wise, which is dangerous. Said it's dangerous for particularly performing artists, not dancers because it's so rigorous, but actors, writers. What do you do with the downtime? What do you do
Mm,
between the
yeah.
jobs?
I don't know, it's so hard.
It's
I mean,
hard.
yeah, I think the 3 of us can speak to that. Scott, we've never worked together,
No.
but we
I
know
would
what
love
it's
to.
like.
I can already tell I would love
Wouldn't
to.
it be great?
Yeah, I would go.
But we know what it's like to be on a soap set, and I say soap set, why is that so different than a nighttime set, right, in a
Completely
film?
different.
I'll tell you what my differences were. You're turning the material around overnight, so you're responsible if you're the lead. You know, nowadays they do a lot. Now I don't know back. Let me ask you this, Scott. I was at Y&R. I was probably the most volume I had ever handled. I could see over 70 pages, over 100
Oh, yeah.
pages
A day.
um, a day.
Day.
And then you would do multiple episodes sometimes so that you could have dark weeks. I mean,
Yes.
you could have over 100 pages. As a
Absolutely.
lead, you could be responsible for 40
No,
to
you're in
50.
the morning at 7 AM. You don't leave till 11:30 at night. Back at 7 AM, the new director doesn't care that you were here till 11:30 at night.
Right, right, because you had a late shoot.
Okay.
He's got
Can
their
we
own
can we
show.
pause actually?
Yeah,
So I have
pause.
not worked in soaps before, and I would love to hear the difference between scripted narrative dramas, like like a nighttime versus a daytime situation. Like, did you guys get these scripts and then you shot a few episodes a week? did they rehearse, block, shoot, or was it like you rehearsed on Monday, were there table reads? I mean,
No, well, I don't know how it was for Eugene. I'm probably the same. 7 a.m. you come in and we start by blocking the scenes, literally blocking, because the director's already got it set up because he's got to know where the cameras
are.
And at the time, those giant booms were. So that's choreography. And so you do that, we get the blocking, then we would run it once,
3 times, because Scott's getting his makeup done and
Mhm.
putting on, like, he's got his jacket. You would meet actors in the hair and makeup room would be central base.
to run lines,
Scott, let's run our scene.
which we got coming up in 11 minutes.
In 11 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you go out, and then you've got the costume, and Scott will now look completely different. I will look more
Right.
human because the
Mhm.
curlers are out of my hair. They'll say, "Oh, you look so nice." You know,
So
so
funny.
you have all these pleasantries, and they're like, "Okay, what are our lines?"
Well, then you come out and then you rehearse it once, and that rehearsal isn't for you. That rehearsal is for the crew.
For the crew.
Right.
Where the
So
camera's going, where the
Get the
boom's
blocking,
going.
yeah,
Right.
And this was the worst. If they
And
were
the crews
emotional,
were amazing.
the what?
The crews were amazing.
Crews were amazing. I
amazing.
can remember every single boom operator, my favorite cameraman, and they were all my favorite. Who was my central camera? Who was my right and left? Because
Mhm.
these guys were your buddies.
Oh,
They
yeah.
just made you feel so like they were. And one said to me, he said, "We're there with you in every special moment, in every powerful moment. You come through our lens, and it goes back to the booth."
Yeah.
But we're with you in those
Yeah.
moments. And
Amen.
very often they'd come to you after a very powerful scene in one way or the other. They'd say that was beautiful. And that was
And
the
if a
highest,
crew guy says that, that's like
highest
getting an
compliment.
Oscar.
Why?
No, that is like, because they see it all. And
Because
so
they see when you screw
all
up,
of it. Yep.
and they see how hard it was for
Yeah.
you maybe to get it right, or maybe they saw the genius of
Yeah.
that gorgeous moment.
I had a great moment. There was a great boom operator guy, Arthur Murphy. He actually got a PhD on soap operas and he was a boom operator, and
That's
he
a
would just keep
thing?
going to college, right? And he created, it was about, I can't remember what it was. It was about soap opera structure and comparing it to mythology.
Okay.
Yeah.
At one point, he's up on the boom, and I'm having a fight with the producer of the day. I can't remember what it was, and maybe I was still drinking and I had some arrogance, but I said, "Why am I saying it? Why? Why am I saying this?" And
Mhm.
Arthur's up on the booth and he's just cleaning his fingernails and he goes, "Money, girls, vacations, your mortgage. God, the list is endless." It was like a
Not that
great,
deep.
like,
People
it's not
are
right. Just do it.
Some people are my favorite because you never know when your mic is on. You have to be so
Oh.
careful what you say.
Please.
Which is the whole plot of The Fall Guy, I think. But it's so true. Like you'll say something and across the room you'll hear somebody laughing and you're like, "Oh, they're laughing at what I just said." And I'm like, "Oh, my mic is on." I need to be
Well, here's a line I always tell my new sound guys I work with. And again, on soap operas back in the day, we didn't wear mics. We just had the boom.
You
And
just had booms.
just had booms.
Oh,
There was no
I
mic on.
love the sound people, but every day when we get to set, they're putting wires in
Yeah,
places
wires,
they
all
shouldn't
right.
be.
Exactly, right? So anyway, I can't I was, like Law and Order, doesn't matter, but this sound guy's doing that, running a wire up my leg, right, to be hidden behind my tie. And my father taught me this line. It's great for sound guys. They will love you if you say this. And I say to them, "The Lord said, 'Let there be light.' Proof that audio came first."
Oh, that's good. I
That's a
get it.
funny one.
I'm
I
on
get it.
delay.
Isn't that funny? And they all the sound guys go, "Yeah, that's right. Audio is
Right.
first." And then I said that to a director, and he went, "Yeah, it's not called tele-listen."
Oh, that's so good. He said it was radio.
Was
Crush
yeah.
that. Oh, that's hilarious. Okay, wait a minute. Now, Scott, I loved it. I loved the challenge of having the most ridiculous speech or the most outlandish speech. And this was not to the writer. This was more just the language of
Yeah.
the melodrama. It's what we did.
Well, the better the writer, the easier it is.
Yes. But I'm like, it was a challenge. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm going to ground this.
Yeah.
I am going to ground it in some real emotion that I don't even care how silly this sounds, but that would be the biggest challenge is how do you make sense of something that is so outlandish?
Well, and then I was in trouble early days. They were when they didn't know what to do with Craig Montgomery at first. Then they started to lean in towards the villain, which actually was fantastic and opened up the whole thing.
Right.
And I looked at my dad and I said, "So they want me to play the villain?" And he went, "Yeah. So how are you going to do that?" And I said, "I don't know. How do you play the villain?" And he goes, "Well, let me ask you a question. Does the villain know he's a villain?"
Nope.
So don't play the villain.
Justified.
Don't ever do that.
Yeah.
Never.
Find out what it is they want.
Oh, I know. And for me, my window always was like the vulnerability. Why is she so
Why?
her pain is so big that she's got to do this.
Right.
And her unforgiveness is so huge, she's got to do this.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Can I ask how do you craft these characters that you've been playing for so long or somebody else has been playing for so long and you step into their shoes and keep the continuity? I mean, how there's these long journeys, you guys are shooting so much content all of the time. And then how do you remember what happened to your character a year and 2 years ago?
Well,
Scott, you originated your characters, which is, I
yeah.
think, such a blessing.
Yeah, oh yeah, a big blessing because I wasn't responsible for anything. We had to, you know what I mean? We just had
Yeah.
to create it and they built it. And the character was built over a period of time. And then once it made sense, once I locked in on who he was and that desperate for love, for family, for stability, and
Mhm.
so desperate that all he does is create mayhem
Love it.
because in his desperation it's flailing and anger and crazy.
What let me ask you, when you had the craziest scene of, 30 pages, whatever it would be, I think that was like 40 pages, 35 pages sometimes, they would have to break, but when you
3-page monologues in
yeah,
short.
ugh, monologues were not my favorite, but monologues took some time, almost like your own directing, you kinda have to, like, figure out how
Well,
you're
you
gonna
step into a one-man show for a minute,
it's a
and then you
one-man
come
show.
back in
Yeah.
right, and then you come back out, right?
Correct,
Mm.
correct, they're hard.
Yeah.
Because, by the way, we had to get it in, kind of in the first take, right after dress rehearsal.
Well, if you don't, you're not here very long, are you?
You're better. But, this could be a whole nother episode of what the soap opera world did for me, like, in the perfectionism department, like, get it right, get it done, get it
Probably
and
have to learn to trust your
you
instincts.
have to trust your
Yeah.
instincts, but you do get addicted to, "Nailed it, let's go. Next one, next one, next
Well,
one,"
that's
and it
the hit. That's the
it's a hit.
Like
baseball
a
Thank you.
player.
high.
I
You
knocked it
kinda get a
out.
high.
I knocked the ball out. Give me the
I just
next
did
one.
it. Let's go
Give
do it
me the
again.
next one, right?
Yeah, and so
And it's so interesting, you're like, well, the difference between soaps and actors. I mean, Farley Granger, who was on our show, Farley Granger had done Strangers on a Train, The Rope with Alfred Hitchcock, huge Hollywood star back in the 50s. Farley winds up on As the World Turns in the late 80s, early 90s. First day he arrives, he saw me, and I was a major. It's clear who's the major stars are here because they
right.
don't leave the rehearsal.
It's drilled to the
It's like
floor.
drilled to the floor. So he comes over to me at one point, there's a little bit of a break, and he's got the script, and he goes, "How much of this are we doing today?"
Like, all
And
of
I
it?
said, "All of it."
I know.
And, literally the blood drained out of his face. Because in movies, if you can get 2.5 minutes of usable film in the can in one day,
Mhm.
they're ecstatically happy.
Well,
And
and
in
you
soap,
worked
we're doing the whole
the
thing.
whole thing, but you worked in a time, Scott, that I wonder that, I worked in the late 90s and then 2000s and late 2000s. Money was starting to shrink a bit, viewership was shrinking, and you felt it I mean, you're like, "Let's go, guys. We have to be wrapped by 5."
Right.
The 11 o'clock shoots were
We're
not
done.
cool anymore.
No,
They were
well,
expensive.
we were on location in Europe and on
Yeah.
cruise ships in the Bahamas. I mean, it was a very special, unique time in
Yes.
the genre.
Yes.
And I remember they were panicking because they had dropped down to 11 million viewers. And I was leaving the
11,000,000.
show and they're throwing money at me because we're losing and
Right.
11 million? Primetime shows don't get 11 million.
Yeah.
Scott, that
You
is
know,
so cool.
and you think primetime shows would have been canceled under this, right? And
Mhm.
now it's like, and then eventually they're down to like under 1 million viewers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
2, 1.8, 2, yeah, 3, yeah.
So that would you would never have survived back
Mm-mm.
in the day. And then how does that reflect to budgets? And how does that reflect to 500 channels? And like that, like the song says, 500 channels and nothing's on.
Yeah, yeah.
And unfortunately we're there.
All of this gorgeousness, this tapestry of life that you've had, your awakening, it has helped your art in that it has opened you up beyond yourself. You have a presence that you can talk about for now 34 years, a different type of presence, being sober. How has it changed you as a father, as a husband, as an artist, having these God winks, having these moments of divine grace throughout your life?
Humility,
Yeah.
a
Nope.
sense of awe.
Right.
No, I remember it was a moment. And look, I've had a very blessed life. At one point, I was on a vacation in Bora Bora, I was leaving Bora Bora, and I'd become very friendly with many of the Polynesians, and they sort of took me in beautifully. Anyway, I'm heading back to the airport, which is just this Japanese World War II strip that's going to fly you to Tahiti to get a real plane and fly home, right? And it was a new moon. There was no moon in the sky. It was 11 o'clock at night. I'm up on the top of this ferry, this little putt-putt motor ferry, and men are playing ukuleles and singing Polynesian songs, and it's not Disneyland. This is like the real deal.
The real thing.
And I'm laying on this boat looking up at the sky, and there were billions of stars, countless. Not only were there so many stars, it was layered. I could see I could see the depth of it. I get home, I got out of LAX, look up at the sky. I'm just looking at 2 stars maybe.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, we've lost awe. We've lost that, like, to look up. And with awe comes humility. If there's something that you look at that's so, wow, how I'm nothing in this. Although I love that little saying, you're not a drop in the ocean. You're the ocean in every drop. We're all part of this massive thing. So there's no small, but there is awe. And I feel like we've lost that, and we need to have that back. Wherever I turn, I hear yelling and arrogance and absolutism, and I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah. And I thank you, because all of these God winks, and this is, I think, the heart of why this is our why. We love hearing from people like you that say, I had a moment where it was bigger than me. It wasn't me. It wasn't coincidence. This was God. This was God. God's real, and he's working, and he
yes.
loves you so much.
And I will tell you that, having faced death several times now and having had the presence of God in my life and in my soul, I am no longer afraid, because we are in a process. I am part of something, and I have a journey that I'm on, and I don't even know the reason for my journey yet. It's not up for me to know. I just have to do my best.
Well, you are doing your best, my friend. You have touched both of us, and I pray that your words and your vulnerability and every part of you just touch every listener. Thank you so much for being a part of this.
Thank you so
Thank you
much,
for
Scott. It
having
was
me.
wonderful meeting
Yes.
you.
And you, Ashley. Your blessings on you both.
Thank you.
Gina, that was absolutely incredible. Thank you again so much for bringing Scott into our lives.
Isn't he? You can just feel the
Yeah.
gratitude, and I mean, we could just talk to him forever. I think it's just, it's contagious. His beauty and his present moment awareness is contagious, and I really hope it translates into
I
the.
agree. Yeah. He's a fabulous actor. He's a fabulous human being, and he has had some really incredible God winks. And I think a lot of it is because he opened himself up to be vulnerable. And he laid everything down at God's feet, and he said, help, I need help.
Yes, it was his surrender to God that allowed God to pick him up and sort of remake him again. And his level of humility and gratitude is so beautiful to watch. I think that it's safe to say that he's just a wonderful actor. You can tell that he is just his attention to detail, the way that he tells a story. You can tell he's very thoughtful in his work.
Yeah. Well, thank you again so much. Thank you to everybody for joining us on God Winks. And we hope that you will like and follow us on social media. We are active on Facebook and Instagram, and we want to hear your stories. So if you have a God wink that you would like to share with us, you can go to our Instagram, click the link in bio, and there's a form you can fill out where you share your God wink and whether you would like us to share it publicly, or if you just want us to read it amongst ourselves and be blessed by it.
Yes, we always love to hear anything you have to say that says God is good and God is real. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.